Welcome back and happy belated St. Patty's Day to you all. I'm your lead news anchor, Ricky Whitmore, and I will be covering world news and breaking news. Sitting next to me is my co-anchor, Julianne Roberts on MLC News. Later on in the show, we will hear the weekend forecast from our weatherman, Thunderous Tom. Then we will have sports with Madison, who will also be joining me later to interview our guest, John Leidy. We also have a music lesson along with a history lesson from Professor Jeffrey. Then we will hear the latest movie news from our movie critic Spencer. Thanks to our great backup crew, Dominic and Madison and Tom on cameras, and our driver, Uncle Rich. I regret to inform you all that I was defeated in Just Dance 2 by the Dancing King himself, our very own Uncle Rich. So sit back, relax, grab a Shamrock Shake, and enjoy another great episode of the MLC Today Show. Tonight in breaking news, gas line explodes in South Minneapolis with no injuries. Minneapolis, a natural gas line exploded in South Minneapolis near 60th and Nicollet Avenue, 60th Street and Nicollet Avenue last Thursday, sending flames shooting high into the sky, scorching nearby vehicles and forcing authorities to close a busy freeway until officials could inspect it for damage. Assistant Fire Chief Sherry Penn told reporters that authorities shut off the gas in the area late Thursday morning. There were no fatalities and no injuries as a result of the explosion. The blast left a large hole in the road. The flames died after authorities shut off the gas line a little more than an hour after the explosion. Surveillance video from the nearby Cub Foods store shows 3 cars driving on 60th Street directly over the road just before the explosion. Gas levels in the air had reached 80 parts per million, but were back down to 0 within a few hours. Penn said, adding that people were still being evacuated from the area as a precaution. I think the situation is as under control as it can be, Mayor R.T. Ryback told reporters. The blast happened around 8:45 a.m. on the street in front of a Cub Food supermarket located at 5937 Nicollet Avenue South in a residential and industrial area near the interchange of Interstate 35W and Highway 62, Penn said. There was a secondary explosion shortly after the first. Cars in the parking lot were scorched in the blast. And in world news, stop-start work at Japan reactors. Power cables have been attached to all reactors at Japan's stricken nuclear plant, which was seriously damaged in the March 11th earthquake and tsunami. Lighting is back on in one control center, a boost for engineers working to restart the cooling systems. One of the first firefighters to reach the plant, which was hit by a series of explosions, told the BBC of his shock on seeing the extent of the damage. Nairumi Suzuki said all the crew knew the threat from radiation. Every firefighter knew how dangerous it was to be in the radiation zone. The firefighters trusted and relied on each other, which is why we carried out the operation well. When I saw the building itself for the first time, there were piles of rubble. It was much worse than we expected when we first set eyes on it. I and the other firefighters were frightened, he told the BBC. The work to restore power at the Fukushima Daiichi plant restarted shortly after dawn on Tuesday, after engineers had briefly evacuated the complex as steam and smoke was seen rising from 2 reactors. By that evening, cables had been linked to all 6 reactors for the first time. External power has now been partially restored to the control room of the number 3 reactor, public broadcaster NHK reported. The lighting will make conditions easier for the engineers who are working to restore full power to the plant, to restart the cooling system and monitoring equipment. Workers have been battling to cool reactors and spent fuel ponds to avoid a major release of radiation. Earlier on Tuesday, fire crews sprayed water on reactors 3 and 4 to try and keep fuel rods cool. The rubble created by last week's explosions has been making it difficult for the trucks to get close enough to the reactors. Meanwhile, higher than normal levels of radiation have been detected in seawater about 10 miles, 16 kilometers off the coast near the plant, but those levels appeared to be falling overnight. The plant's operator, TEPCO, is investigating. Police say that the confirmed death toll from the earthquake and tsunami is now 9,079, with 12,645 missing. More than 350,000 people are still living in evacuation centers or temporary housing in northern and eastern Japan, many of them short of food, water, and fuel. Now on to Julianne with MLC News.
We just had a spring break. There was a group of people that went on the spring break trip to Florida. This was a week-long trip of canoeing the ocean and black water. We were with the wellness inquiries. We went to a lot of different islands, such as Panther Key and Whitehorse Key. It was a lot of fun, and everyone was very sunburned and tan when we returned to Minnesota. For me, I had an awesome time. I had learned a lot about myself, and things are in a new perspective. For example, I can tell when I have enough of exercise for the day, and I can also look at things differently with my roommates. I canoed in the Buff for almost 35 miles. That is a lot of canoeing that we did. I am looking forward to our next spring break trip and to see where that will take me. We also were camping in tents as well. While we were camping, we saw a lot of different kinds of wildlife, such as dolphins, sea manatees, and a funny pelican. This funny pelican was flying up and then dived back into the water for fish. The pelican went up in the air and dived again, and it tried to fly, but it went back into the water. It was very close to our campsite. So were the sea manatees. I have some pictures of our wildlife. We tried to have a campfire, and it lasted for about an hour or so. We had s'mores around it. We had an outdoor dinner with lots of delicious foods. We had pizza and ratatouille and more. As you can tell, that we all have fun. That's all that I have for this MLC News, so let's go to a commercial.
Hello, welcome back. Weather in the U.S. The Twin Cities snowfall for the season so far is 84.7 inches. And the weekend forecast for tomorrow, partly to mostly cloudy with the high of 34 and the low of 17. And on Saturday, a high of 35 and a low of 17 with mostly cloudy skies. And on Sunday, partly to mostly cloudy with a high of 35 and a low of 18. Now on the sports with Maddie.
Aloha. Welcome to surfing country. We've all heard about surfing can be the most dangerous sport. Well, it is if you surf the Maverick. Sion Milowski, an emerging star in a thrilling but dangerous sport, died Wednesday. evening after a violent wipeout. The married father of 2 who lived on the Hawaiian island of Kauai was 35 years old. He becomes the second surfer to have died at Mavericks. The other was legendary big wave rider Mark Foe, also from Hawaii, who drowned after a wipeout in 1994. After Foe's death, surfers began to keep a closer watch on one another from aboard jet-powered personal watercraft. Conditions, however, were sketchy on Wednesday afternoon, with bumpy storm surf and wave faces measuring to about 50 feet. About a dozen surfers were out. 3 people reportedly rode the perimeter on jet skis. Malowski, after a long afternoon of surfing, caught a large set wave at dusk. He was knocked from his board by the wave's cascading lip and held underwater by successive waves, according to witnesses. Several minutes later, he was plucked from the foamy surface by fellow surfer and friend Nathan Fletcher, who was returning to the lineup after delivering another surfer to nearby Pillar Point Harbor. Paramedics on shore were unable to revive Malowski, and he was rushed to a nearby hospital where he was pronounced dead. Sion was dominating at Ken Skidong Collins, a local surfer who let Malowski stay at his home and told the Santa Cruz Sentinel. Everybody was like, "Who's that? What are you doing letting Hawaiians take over your wave?" That's what blows my mind the most, is that he was doing all that and then he drowned. The incident underscores just how powerful the waves at Mavericks can be. Fast-moving deep water swells jack up over a rocky reef and break ferocious power. Surfers have endured 2 and even 3 wave hold-downs. Many have suffered dislocated limbs and ruptured eardrums because of the force with which they're shoved downward or hurled toward shore. In January, Orange County surfer Jacob Tritt was knocked unconscious after falling on a large wave and probably would have died had he not been rescued by a jet ski photographer. However, it is this raw power and the adrenaline rush associated with riding gigantic waves that is so appealing to a small but growing number of big waves chargers. For some, chasing these type of waves is a year-round passion. Malowski, a lifelong surfer who fairly recently developed this passion. This winter was named North Shore Underground Surfer of the Year. He earned $25,000 in the Vans competition and used some of that money to pay for his trip to Santa Cruz, which is just south of Half Moon Bay and home to many Mavericks regulars. After that feat, Surfing Magazine profiled the surfer with the cover spread. It then posted subsequent website Q&A under the headline, Sion Malowski has officially climbed out from the underground. Last winter, however, was when Malowski had really announced his presence. At an outer reef beyond Oahu, he paddled into what many were calling the largest wave caught without the benefit of a jet ski and tow rope. News of Malowski's passing began to spread Wednesday night on social network websites. Most of the posts were heartfelt condolences, including this one on a friend's Facebook page, Sion Malowski. So sad to hear that we have lost you, another great brother from Hawaii. Our deepest sympathy and aloha to your family. Aloha.